Let's talk about how this came together, the Lowdown, the idea for it, what sparked it in the first place.
Yeah, I used to work at this magazine called This Land Press, and it was about really kind of it took place it was in Tulsa. That was our base, and it was about telling the truth about your community and sort of making articles and documentaries and telling the truth and seeing what it was almost like an experiment. Like, let's see what happens, because there was a lot of things I think being suppressed, our history with the race massacre and things like that. We started doing these articles about where we're from, where we lived, and kind of holding a mirror up to our community. And we saw things change. One of the video documentary series that I did was with a guy named Leroy Chapman. And it was called Tulsa Public Secrets. And I would drive around, I'd ride shotgun with a camera pointed at him, and we would drive around, and he would talk about the hidden and neglected treasures and histories of Tulsa, Oklahoma. He was a really big inspiration on my work and kind of who I am and how to think of where you live and to look at your community right around you and try to make a difference there. And he passed away, and I just always had this idea of sort of taking that spirit and having that be the seed of a noir in Tulsa. And that's really kind of where the spark of the idea came from. And then naturally you call your friend Ethan Hawke and see if he'd be interested in doing it, Yeah.
That's how we all.
So, Ethan, tell me what it was about Lee and the way that Sterlin described the real Lee that grabbed you and made you kind of envisage yourself in this role.
I've been becoming friends with Sterlin for a couple of years, and when he first gave me the script, I had no idea, where the inspirations came from. I just recognized that type of person. I've had people in my life who are a lover of others, a person who empowers other people. I sometimes feel like there's human beings sprinkled in every community, and their job is to look after everybody. And sometimes they get lost and they get confused, but they're always provoking change, always provoking healing. So I love the idea of a guy that outside world saw as a loser who inside was a winner. And because he was his own best friend and he was looking after other people. And the character related to some people that I had known in my life. And then as Sterlin and I got deeper into talk, I got to watch some of the short films that Sterlin made with him, and I got to go down to Tulsa and feel not just his energy, but the energy of that community. There's a kind of punk rock rebellious streak to Tulsa that's exciting to be near, and we wanted to put it in the show.
How close to the kind of physicality of Lee did you get, or did you kind of build your own different version of a Lee together? Did you talk about that?
I don't know what you think, but I instantaneously, when he tricked me. When he sent me the script, he sent it to me as a friend saying, hey, I'm going to submit this to FX. Do you think it's ready? You got any notes on it? And I read it. It says, can I play that part? Right. He didn't. If you'd sent it to me as, hey, would you play this? I probably would have taken me 3 months to read it or something. But I instantaneously saw this guy. I don't know. We didn't think that much about it.
We didn't, and I also made sure to tell him that this isn't a biography. Like, I didn't want him to have to emulate anyone. Like, this was not doing a character that existed. It's just kind of, it's the inspiration, it's the spark for this idea. Do what you want. And I didn't know what Ethan was going to do until the day he showed up, and it was great. And, I think it's a mix of things, but it was just like I think the script helped sort of inform a lot of things too.
Sometimes you get, even the first scene with him tells you so much about him. In the history of movies, there's a kind of character like this, the mischievous, stir up of things character, and I've always wanted to get to do my hit on it.
And what did you make of the experience of being in Tulsa, of shooting in Tulsa? How was that, and how did the community rally around and support the production?
I live there, and my friends and family work on the shows, but it was interesting because Ethan moved there to make this show. So this question I think is for Ethan.
Well, it's never happened to me really before, where the sound guy on the show had done Sterlin's first student film. Like everybody, they're teasing each other, they're laughing, there's in-jokes. So you feel like you're, how you imagine the best sense of it, going to somebody invites you to their house because they're going to record an album and they're all best friends and they want you to like, hey, would you play the bass on this track? And you kind of come in there and everybody's spilling coffee on each other and laughing about something that happened 15 years ago. And it actually is fantastic because you realize, oh, all these people trust each other. So all these people are trustworthy. They've survived all these different experiences and they still love each other. So that creates a kind of net that is really good for being playful. Everybody fell into the same spirit of like, oh, I can actually be creative on this set. Let me try this. And Sterlin's a really great leader in that way because he doesn't have to be mean. When he loves something, it's so obvious. So then when he doesn't, that is too obvious. No, let's not do that. Okay, and then, all right, let's move. So I had a great time.
I have a hard time, like, faking anything. So I'm sure you can tell if I'm like, not disappointed, but just not inspired by something,
I did want to talk about the rest of the cast a little bit. Sterlin, tell us about, say, Kyle MacLachlan, for one, is, fabulous. Tell us about his journey to coming on board and working together with you, Ethan.
Yeah, what's funny is I'd met Kyle MacLachlan during reading a screenplay at the Sundance Writers Lab, and he played. I needed. There were, it was mainly a native cast, but there were a few white roles that I needed filled. Kyle MacLachlan and Philip Seymour Hoffman in the reading played all of those roles, and both of them were so sweet to me and talked to me about the script. And I was young, I was 23, and somebody in the front row of this reading said that he made a joke. It was some line of dialogue I wrote, and people laughed, and he shook his head and smiled at me. And someone said, you should be in his film. And Kyle said, I'd be in anything that he made. And so like 20 years later, I literally call Kyle. I'm like, hey, remember when you said that? And he's like, oh, of course I do. Probably didn't remember it at all. But I sent him the script, and, thankfully people had known my work because of Reservation Dogs for sure. And yeah, he came on board, and it was just like, oh man, he's just a joy to work with.
It's one of those funny things where you meet somebody and they're really famous, and then you work with them and you're like, oh, I know why you're famous. You're great at what you do. Like it's not an accident that he's had a 30-year career. He's smart, funny. He's a great team player,
and just a good human,
and a good dude. Yeah, I know.
And he's just like the sweetest guy. Like I really loved what Thank you for your feedback. It's like Kyle. Like, of course.
I love that he made good on his promise from all those years
ago. He totally
I
did.
My last question, actually, Ethan, I was really interested in the relationship between Lee and his daughter in this. It's such a kind of cornerstone of his humanity that we see. As a dad yourself, did you sort of bring the dad-daughter dynamic from your own life into the role?
I definitely did. My daughter would probably want me to shut up about that in public. But I'll say that it's obvious that I did because it's a huge part of who I am, what I care about. But I also had a lot of, like, my father and my stepfather both, my dad was 19 when I was born, so there was a lot of eccentric things that happened, and I didn't have a normal childhood, and it was awesome in that you cannot be a father can be himself with his kids. He doesn't have to be the idea of a father, and I think I wanted that for Lee. Is that just because he is a weird, eccentric person doesn't mean he doesn't want to be a good role model, want to protect his daughter, want to care about her and nurture things in her.
One of the things, we bonded over many things, but one of the things is also being a dad, and doing this career, which is sort of also what Lee's doing, trying to navigate being a truth historian with being a dad, but we have similar things as far as there's kids we're missing right now, and so we really bonded about that before this script and after, So.
The sacrifices you have to make to pursue your vocation, and when is that sacrifice too great? When is it hurting you? When is it hurting others?
And also being very truthful about the issues, pain, and realizations that you have, and where you have to recognize your shortcomings and then recognize your strengths as a dad, and that is something that plays out through the show.
Well, congratulations to both of you on the Lowdown. Thank
you
so
Thank
much
you.
for coming in to talk to us. I really appreciate it.